Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Scott McFarland. There's an impending issue facing the nation a deeply divided Washington will need to come together to solve. The Congressional Budget Office now estimates the country could be unable to pay its bills as soon as July if the debt ceiling standoff isn't resolved. Republicans have demanded attaching spending cuts to any bill that would lift the debt ceiling. Two Democratic senators, Tim Kaine of Virginia and Jeff Merkley of Oregon, think they have the answer to the issue. In a Washington Post op-ed published this week, they suggested going back to a proposal from Senator Mitch McConnell in 2011. They write, quote, his proposal allowed President Barack Obama to increase the debt ceiling subject to a potential override by Congress. They call it the McConnell plan and say it could take the weaponization of the debt ceiling off the table. Joining me now, Virginia Senator Tim Kaine. Thank you for your time, Senator. Explain how this works. It seems to be a role reversal where it's the president who raises the debt ceiling and Congress that gets to approve.
Scott, it's good to be with you to talk about this. And it is a little bit of a role reversal, but we actually think it's appropriate given the way Congress makes spending decisions. So as you know, the budget is for Congress, not the president. The budgetary powers are Article 1 congressional powers. And so we do budgets every year. We put them on the president's desk. The president does not have a line item veto, and so the president's always sign the budget. What our bill would do would basically say this: once Congress has debated and voted on a budget, the president should be able to raise the debt ceiling to cover the actions that Congress has taken and should have that power unilaterally. That would be consistent with the 14th Amendment, that the creditworthiness of the United States should not be challenged. If the president does that to cover the actions that Congress has taken, and Congress decides now it wants to disapprove it, then we could file a resolution of disapproval that would be debated and voted in an expedited way. But this would eliminate the brinksmanship that we've seen used over debt ceiling negotiations in the past. And as you indicated, it's based upon a proposal that Republican leader McConnell floated in 2011 when Barack Obama was president, and that's how we averted the crisis in 2011. We think it would be a good idea to make it permanently a part of the way we do business.
Well, Senator McConnell has said two particularly relevant things since. He has said, first of all, that he was displeased with how much military spending was cut after the 2011 debt ceiling crisis was averted. But he also said unequivocally earlier this year that he thinks it's the House Republicans who need to come up with a plan, that Senate Republicans should stay out of it. So what's the next step to try to push this plan to somebody who could influence the results?
Scott, and I'll say this, if House Republicans say they would like to do spending cuts, and guess what, they have the path to do that. You don't have to do it in a debt ceiling discussion that would threaten our creditworthiness. We have the path because we do a budget bill every year. The Republicans control the House. So what they should do is they should write a budget, just like we're writing one in the Senate, and they should write a budget that reflects their spending priorities. What we would then do is put the House version and the Senate version together. We'd sit in a conference and we'd come up with a compromise. That's the way it gets done. In terms of how we might get this particular proposal in place, Senator Merkley and I floated this idea with Republican colleagues the last time we were up against one of these deadlines, but we were right up against the deadline, and some colleagues said, hold on a second, we're probably not going to take this up right now. But we have a few months, July or possibly till September. This is a bill that would likely go to either the Budget Committee, Jeff Merkley and I are both on that committee, or to the Finance Committee. There are Democratic majorities on each committee. We could get this bill out of the committee and onto the floor and then have a meaningful debate about how to do it. And that's what we're urging on our leadership. I don't have 60 votes for this today. That's what I would need. But we are working, Senator Merkley and I, to try to gain support for this idea, because this would affect Congresses of either party and presidents of either party. And I think anybody could look at it and see a situation in which, wow, my party might have the White House then, my party might have the majority in Congress then. This would be a good solution under those circumstances as well.
Another issue has resurfaced, your proposal for the authorized use of military force revision, or to a degree, retraction. We've talked about this a lot in the past. You do bring this up each Congress. Explain what you're arguing for and why it didn't happen last Congress when you were trying to remove these military force authorizations in Afghanistan and in Iraq?
Scott, I'm a constitutionalist on everything, but maybe especially on this part of Article 1. The Congress has the power to declare war, but Congresses generally don't exercise the supervision over that power in war, peace, and diplomacy, and instead abdicate to the president. Now, the bill that I have, and it's with Senator Todd Young, Republican of Indiana, we have 22 co-sponsors, 11 Democrats, 11 Republicans. We have well more than the votes we would need to pass it in the Senate, would repeal the Iraq war authorizations for the Gulf War 1991 or the Iraq war authorization from 2002. Why would we do this? First, the wars are over, and Congress should just state that plainly rather than leaving an authorization on the book that could be used in a mischievous way by a president who wants to seize onto something as a justification for military action. Second, Iraq's no longer an enemy. When we went into Gulf War in 2002, we were battling against the government of Iraq. Iraq's now a security partner in the fight against ISIS, other terrorist organizations, and against Iranian aggression. And it's important to say to a partner, you're not an enemy. We now value the partnership. So I think this is something whose time has come. We have a broad, not only the numbers, but the ideological breadth of the co-sponsors on the Senate side and on the identical House bill suggests to me that now is the time when we can get this done.
What was the hurdle last few times you tried this? This was seemingly supposed to be voted on in 2021. What's the resistance?
Well, Scott, you're right. We got this out of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee with a bipartisan vote in 2021. And my leader, Senator Schumer, said we will get a vote on this on the floor. But he had some ideas about maybe making it part of the defense bill, which that was perfectly fine. But then at the end of 21 and at the end of 22, for a variety of unrelated reasons, we didn't do a full floor debate on the defense bill. And so there was no opportunity to offer it as an amendment. Where are we now? Senator Schumer remembered what he said to us, and he has said, look, I committed to get you guys a vote, and I want you to. President Biden has said he would sign this bill, and what's happening in the Senate right now, because of the slow pace of appointing committees at the start of this 118th Congress, there's not a big full legislative calendar right now. So we feel like if we act quickly, we can get this up before the calendar starts to crowd. The other thing, Scott, I'll mention is the 20th anniversary of the Iraq War. It began on March 19th, 2003. We're coming up to the 20th anniversary, and I think people are aware of that moment, and it's well past time that we take this step.
Busy day, busy week for you. Senator Tim Kaine, thank you for your time.
Always good to be with you, Scott. Thanks.